Did you know that a young boy drowned the year before those two others were killed? The counselors weren't paying any attention. They were making love while that young boy drowned. His name was Jason. I was working the day that it happened, preparing meals. Here, I was the cook. Jason should have been watched every minute. He was...
Hey, tonight we're going to kick off our summertime campfire series with Friday the 13th, Part 1. Let's get at it.
Remember, we keep it tight, and it's a podcast world. We're ready to ignite. That's the lesson. We got it all. Tune in, turn up, come vibe with us, y'all. So remember...
Friday the 13th is a 1980 American independent slasher horror film produced and directed by Sean S. Cunningham, written by Victor Miller, and the plot follows a group of camp counselors who are murdered one by an unknown killer while they are attempting to reopen an abandoned summer camp with a tragic past. Kay, tell us who was in this cinema gold we're about to talk about.
Yes, sir. So we have several actors and actresses that played this movie, so I'll go ahead and start with our main girl here, our final girl, Alice Hardy, played by Adrienne King. We have the camp owner here, the guy with the really sick mustache, Steve.
Yeah,
Christie,
baby.
played by, you gotta give it to him, the short shorts and the mustache, man. He had it going on. Steve Christie, played by Peter Brower. You had Ned Rubenstein, played by Mark Nelson. Had Bill Brown, played by Harry Crosby. Had Brenda Jones, played by Laurie Bartram, and Jack Burrell, played by the man that everybody knows today, Kevin Bacon, a legend. I don't know if this was
it's one of his first. I don't know if it's his first or not.
Maybe one of the second ones? Okay. And then lastly, we have Marcy Cunningham, played by Jeannie Taylor.
Oh, yeah.
Sweet. Daniel, how much did you say this movie? It was like $600,000 was the budget for it, something like that.
I watched a little behind-the-scenes thing last night with my uncut version, and they were doing a panel, and they had like 6 or 8 of the actors that was in the movie, and one of them I think it was actually Tom Savini that said that they were operating off a $600,000 budget.
Sweet. It looks like it brought in $59.8 million. So no wonder we got a sequel. But I'll start the conversation off like this tonight. As I was watching it, it takes place. What was the actress's name that's there at the first? She's going to hitchhike to the camp, and she gets in the truck with that old
Annie.
country fella. Who was it? Annie.
Robbie Morgan.
Okay.
Spitting that knowledge. Did you guys notice when the trucker is helping her in the truck, he totally gets a handful of butt when he's pushing her up in the truck?
And that was I caught that immediately.
I was like, man, come on.
This dude's a perv, man.
And she didn't even say nothing to him, man.
Well, it was 1980. She probably didn't care.
I guess that's just how it rolled back then, If you're going to get a ride from somebody, you better let him get a feel, I guess.
Are all those camp counselors as pretty as you? Like, he's just saying some pervy stuff, man.
Nowadays, no girl would go near that
Bree
truck.
Was saying. Bree was like, if he's walking me out to the truck and he says some crap like this, she said, I ain't even getting in there with him. She said, that's just creepy.
No, that ain't the day we're living in now. But as they're going to get in the truck, you have Ralph comes out, and he's all like a stumbling, town fool or whatever, and he tells them that the camp's got a death curse and she'll never make it out alive. But you know what? I don't know that if it's canon or not, but I think it's kind of understood that that's Jason's daddy. Have you guys ever heard that?
Really?
So,
I have not.
I can't verify that, but
that's what I've heard. That Ralph is Jason's dad, and I kind of have a hard time believing that because Jason kills Ralph in part 2. Yeah.
Was Ralph?
Oh, really?
Jason
I was about
Jason
to say
kills
spoiler
Ralph.
alert.
Well, spoiler alert. Well, you know what? Maybe, he's pissed off that Ralph let his mama get killed or something like that. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if it's canon, but that is, one of the rumors out there that Ralph ends up being Jason's dad. But, so the truck driver takes Annie down the road. I think it's 20 miles to the camp. So he drives 10 miles and drops her off at a graveyard.
Yeah.
And then I guess
Really
she's just
nice
supposed
guy.
to walk the extra
Yeah.
10 miles,
And I actually, well,
what do you
see,
guys
I
think
didn't
about
know
that,
it was 10 miles. I do know that back at the diner they were talking, and
Yeah.
they said that it was 20
God.
miles. The camp was 20 miles. And I know that he did drive her at least part of the way, dropped her off in front of that cemetery.
Yeah, they said wherever he was going was halfway, so I was assuming that's 10 miles,
So
half of 20,
So I'll
Yeah,
give
that's
you
a
I'll give
freaking
you a
hike
little
right there.
tidbit
No,
here
no doubt.
that kind of goes along with that. Is they're on this road, he drops her off at the cemetery, and then he keeps on going down that road, and she ends up like cutting off on the road right in front of the cemetery. Okay, that road is the road that led directly to Camp Crystal Lake. So in the scene after that, if you're looking at if you watch this movie chronologically, okay, and you're thinking scene by scene is happening chronologically, then that means that the truck that Kevin Bacon and the other guy and the other girl was in, that means that they would have had to have passed Annie and not picked her up, because they were on that road after Annie was dropped off on the road.
Yeah, that's a good point, because she ended up walking for miles and obviously
Yeah.
gets picked up by the Jeep. But I don't know if we talked about it or not, but doesn't the start of the movie take place in 1958, where they're looking at all the other counselors, and then we
That
have
was
the first
set
kill?
in 1958.
Yeah, that's right. And that was, I'm guessing, if I remember this correctly, that's a year after the
That's
death
right.
of Jason.
The drowning of Jason.
Okay, I was making sure I had everything set in there.
Yeah,
but-
that's where they were sitting around the campfire picking on the guitar, and as soon as they
Yeah.
got done singing the song, they was giving each other that eye, and then that's when they went up and done was about to do their thing. Then they met their demise by an unknown assailant. You know what I'm
And
saying?
they after they got
That's
busted,
right.
they acted just like any other kid would when they get busted. They were like, grinning and giggling, and
we weren't doing anything.
and the killer wasn't having it, and went after both of them.
Well, I guess if I don't know if we want to talk about who the killer is yet, but if it's obviously we know the killer is. If you saw that person, you probably wouldn't really think, oh, this person's gonna
Right,
kill
looks
me.
very
You would
Right,
think, oh, they're
right.
about to,
Very
they're about to
approachable.
call the police. Right, so I mean, I guess at first because this is what threw me off, because when I saw their reaction, I was like, why are they kind of acting like this person's, like an authoritarian figure or something? Like in my head, I'm like, Jason's sitting there, like, I know at this point he wouldn't, have his mask, and I wasn't as familiar with the lore yet, and didn't realize, okay, Jason was a kid, so I was like, that's kind of crazy, but I guess from here we see her. I mean, at this point, after he drops her off in the truck, does it pan to our
So
counselors
he drops
at this
her-
point?
Is that where they're
so
coming
he
down the
drops her
road?
off in the truck, and she starts hiking up the road towards Camp Crystal Lake. And then the very next scene is Kevin Bacon and his buddies in that green truck with the banjo music going.
Yeah.
So
And that guy.
and they're actually like,
Go ahead, bud.
so when you're watching it, they're actually passing like really nice looking houses. They've like a very nice, farmhouse type places. Even right up near the camp, there was still like fields that had been mowed. So they're I didn't see any cows, but you're going to have mowed fields and whatnot, probably cattle around. That means that I always like thinking of horror movies like this. That means that these are places that normal people go and they like live in these areas. And you think, well, if you're at somebody's house, somebody's living there, that means you're safe. So it gives the impression of safety. And yet all these kids are just about to get killed like within, a quarter of a mile, within a quarter of a mile from these places. So I thought in that scene, when the truck was driving down the road, you saw all of those real nice houses and stuff, and then they turned right into Camp Crystal Lake, even to the point to where Annie gets picked up by the hitchhiker. If you'll notice, she was walking across a bridge with a nice, guardrail type thing that, it looked very well kept up. Yeah. There was a field right behind her as she was getting in the Jeep. That field had been bush hogged, so you know that there's some farmer that's, coming through there ever so often. So these type things are what gives me the sense of, okay, this is a safe area. And then all of a sudden, Annie gets picked up by the Jeep and never makes it to camp.
Yeah, that scene was crazy to me because, again, I didn't know the ending of this movie. And do you guys think we can go ahead and reveal what happens?
Yeah. By this time, everybody ought to know.
Obviously, the killer in this movie is not Jason. It's Jason's mom, Pamela Voorhees.
Right.
And so I didn't have this knowledge. And so when I'm sitting there on my couch, and I made a voice recording on my phone of this, she gets in the Jeep, and she's just all like happy-go-lucky. And in my head, I'm like, dude, there is a freaking monster driving this Jeep down the road. Because we know that Jason's a very disfigured person. And so she's just sitting there smiling, and I'm like, girl, she didn't even look in the Jeep before she just hopped in. She threw her bag in the trunk and then hops on in.
That chick was begging for it, man. She's letting a truck driver grab her by the butt and put her in a truck, and then she's just jumping in with somebody else. What did you think was going to happen, Annie?
Ready to go cook for these kids.
Well, I was going to say, Annie just wasn't real smart. And just like what you guys were saying,
No.
But even when she's back in the town, she walks into the diner, okay? If this is me, and I walk into the diner, and everybody just stops and stares at me, okay? Red flags are going up, man. Red flags are going up already for me. I'm going, okay, maybe I'm somewhere that I don't need to be at, right? So the people end up being friendly enough, but then right before I go get molested by the truck driver, when he grabs my butt, I run into Crazy Ralph. Yeah. That's warning number one. Actually, that's warning number two, because warning number one is whenever she tells everybody in the cafe, hey, I'm going to Camp Crystal Lake, and everybody's like, you're doing what? What?
Yeah,
that's warning number one, okay? Everybody knows something that I don't know. Warning number two is when Ralph actually comes out and says, hey, man, I'm a crazy, whacked out weirdo, and I'm going to say it in this crazy way, but don't go to that camp. Just don't go. Yep.
What did he say exactly? Like,
it was
like doomed or
something to like that effect. You're all doomed.
Yeah. That's exactly.
So
that's
warning
right.
number 3, after the truck driver grabs her butt, they're in the truck, and he was like, hey, did your boss tell you what happened?
Yeah,
no.
I know. I'm like,
no, my boss didn't tell me what happened.
Back.
What happened? Well,
I'm good.
2 kids died a long time ago, and since then, every time that they try to open up the camp, something bad happens. Okay, that's warning number 3. Okay, and then she continues on to the camp and never makes it because she's a moron. So I think Annie had it coming. She got enough.
There ain't no doubt about
warnings
that.
up front to be able to tell that truck driver, "Hey, you know what? Why don't you just turn me back around, and take me back to town? I'll give you some gas.
Yeah, I'm
money.
going to
I'll
rethink
give you some
this.
gas money. How about that?"
But
Now her death was kind of crazy too. I mean, like this was for back then. I mean, it shows.
Oh, and
her throat getting
this
sliced.
hey, that's
this
Tom
is-
Savini, man, the
That's
master
right.
of
Yeah.
special
practical effects
Yeah.
at its finest. And I mean, you talk about
It was
you're
pretty
talking
clean.
about
I mean, I was like,
working
dang,
with
man.
no money. They're having to come up with these kills with no really good way to do them. And Tom Savini, man, hats off to this guy. Hands down, he is the master.
Yeah, I would say what little money they had was going to what he was doing for the movie. Because really, for the rest of the movie, it was just, filming some kids at a summer camp. But the next scene we see is where Kevin Bacon and company cruise up to the camp, and this what's his name? He's out there chopping
That's
wood.
Steve Christie.
Steve.
Yeah. And I get cracked up every time I see that scene because I don't know if he knows them or not, or this is the first time they've met him. But first off, it's summertime, right? And he's out there
Yeah.
chopping firewood, which, okay, maybe that's for like some
Right.
campfires. I can kind of
Right.
explain that away. But so I take it he doesn't know them and they're showing up to work.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
but maybe he does know them. I don't know. But as soon as they pull up, he's like, "Give me a hand." And he's like, boom, right into it, man. I'm like, man, can you let him unpack for a second, dude? So, I mean, I've always thought that was crazy because he just looks at him. He's like, "Give me a hand. Let me rip this stump out of the ground."
This dude, you already know this dude is going to be hell on wheels to work for the entire summer. I mean, this guy's going to be an awful boss, man. God.
Yeah, just seeing him with no shirt and a bandana around his neck. Look, I'm gonna go ahead and clock out and go home, man.
So Alice is I don't know how old she is in the movie. I'm guessing I don't think are they all? Okay,
I'm going to say
these
that they're college
students?
age, yeah.
I'm assuming they're.
Yeah.
Because she talks about going back to California because she likes to draw, and if it doesn't work out, she's going to leave. But I mean, he puts a move on her there.
Well, were they romantically connected? Because she was ready to bounce, man, and he talked her into staying until Friday.
Like it, yeah.
And,
I think that
Yeah.
maybe they had at least gone out a time or two. They had a little bit of history.
Yeah.
Because he put his hand on her hair while she was hanging up that gutter, and I was like, this guy. I thought she was a teenager at first.
Most
I was like,
awkward
whoa.
touch though. He like reaches his hand out and he like touches his
Yeah,
side of the face.
that was
like,
goofy.
okay, man, you don't need to be cringy.
I didn't know
like
what
that.
he was gonna do.
I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, that dude gives you
Yeah, man.
vibes from the get, man. But fun fact about her: after she filmed this movie, she got a stalker in real life, and it got so bad that when part 2 came up, she told him, said, "Hey, make my role as small as possible," and she never acted again. Or maybe she did later on, but she never acted again after part 2 because of
they
this
were
stalker.
talking about that a little bit on that panel, the one that I watched last night. They were talking about that, and she said that she read a couple of years ago on Wikipedia that the reason why she wasn't in part 2 for very long is because of contract disputes and money. And she said it had nothing to do with money. She said, I had a stalker and I wanted to be, I wanted to be in the movie, but I wanted to be on screen for as little as possible, go in and do my thing and leave. She said that, the stalker ended up being a really big deal and it affected her. She said for about 20 years afterwards. Yeah.
God, I'm surprised she didn't do anything like take any legal, steps towards getting that taken care of.
Oh, well, and I don't know.
A long time.
Well, back then they probably didn't care.
that was
Yeah.
back before people had stalkers, or at least it wasn't as common as what it seems now. So I'm betting that, she
Yeah.
went and told some people and they just blew her off, like, you ain't got no stalker. What are you talking about, But yeah, it was she.
Yeah, that's exactly how the police would have probably handled it back in 1981
Oh, yeah.
or whenever it was.
Like, what are you complaining
Oh,
about,
yeah.
lady?
It comes along with the territory, toots.
Oh, you're the one that wanted to be the actress.
Yeah. So what's the
I
next
guess
scene there?
Yeah, so they all essentially, Steve has to leave to go to town to pick up either some parts or whatever he's got to do. So he drives off, and then all the counselors, they just, start screwing around. They
Yeah,
go swimming.
because
one of
Steve's
the-
gone,
Yeah,
you can
so
actually
see,
play a
Steve,
little
he
bit.
Yeah.
leaves, and then everybody, the first thing that they do is they're going to go swimming, right? So you get to see Kevin Bacon in the world's smallest pair of Speedos running around.
God.
And,
Yeah, dude. I
he,
was like,
he was showing
Like, what the
everybody
heck is
what
that?
he had. And then dude ends up acting like he's drowning. So it gets everybody to jump in. Now, here's another funny scene about this. Let me break this scene down. It's like
Break it
you got a
down
couple
for
of
us.
people that's in the water, and the one girl already sees Pamela Voorhees across the lake, but she doesn't realize that she's seeing her. She just thinks that she sees somebody watching them. And, of course, she's sitting there, and somebody's like, you see somebody? And she was like, no, I don't guess so. And then the other dude walks up, and he was like, well, are you guys ready to go back to work? And they're like, yeah. So everybody gets back on the dock, and they're ready to head back out to do whatever it is that they're going to do. And you've got that one guy that's still in the water, and he acts like he's starting to drown, right? So then Kevin Bacon, he runs and jumps into the water, and so does the girl. So they swim out to him. You've got another couple of people that get in a canoe. They roll up on him, and then Alice, our heroine, she gets a life preserver. Final girl. She gets a life preserver after both Kevin Bacon and the girl have him, say he's safe, and the boat is right there with them. She takes the life preserver and throws it and almost hits them. That's like the most ridiculous.
yeah, I noticed that too.
Dude is saved, right? Don't throw the life preserver, and that's what Alice does. That's her contribution, right? So they pull this guy back up on the dock, and it ended up being a prank because he wanted to kiss that one girl. So that's what happens. And I've seen this movie probably 50 times at least, and I start laughing every time that Alice grabs that life preserver. I think even somebody says, grab a life preserver.
Yeah.
Well, then, they've already got him halfway up to the dock, and she almost throws the life preserver and hits the guy in the head. I mean, it's always made me laugh.
I've never noticed it, but next time
Oh,
time
yeah,
I watch it, I'll have
one of
to remember
it's
that
one of
because I
them
guarantee
things
that's
to where
funny.
once you do notice it, you'll see it every time, and you'll laugh.
Yeah, I think this is around the time where we start to see more of like the stalker scenes from, I guess, Pamela Voorhees kind of watching them. I thought that was a really creepy way to film that. But I want to say, this was actually introduced, I think, maybe earlier in the movie, but the iconic, Friday the 13th, menacing soundtrack. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know we haven't talked about that yet, but do you guys have any cool insights on like how they came up with that? I thought I was reading that it was based on what Pamela says in the movie about.
And you're right.
Jason
You're
speaking through
exactly
her, I
right.
guess. Something like that.
Everybody thinks that it's a CH sound. Everybody thinks it's going, but
Yeah.
it's not doing that. It's a K sound. It's a K, K, K. And the other part of that,
Yeah.
everybody thinks is a HA sound that's going, but that's not right. It's a MA, a ma. So it's K, ma, And what that came from was Killer Mommy. So it was kill and then mommy and Kima, and then it turned into and that's where that came from.
I've heard that. I've heard that story, and I know that's the official story of it, but for some reason I don't buy it because there's probably no bigger fan of the Friday the 13th genre other than me, and that has always been to me. I mean,
I know.
I don't hear
it's
the,
so
the
weird.
K and the ma. I don't hear
that
that.
was-
I never have, and I know that's
Well,
the
that was
official
what
story. But
that Harry
call bull crap on it.
Harry Manfredini is the guy that did the soundtrack for all of the Friday the 13th movies. And that is what Harry Manfredini said. So, I mean,
Oh yeah, I know that's the truth. I don't hear it. You
yeah,
know.
he basically distorted. Like he took the audio of her saying that and distorted.
I'm not
it,
real
right?
sure
And
if he
made
took it from
that
her
little
or if he
snippet.
just did it himself and distorted it. But that's the
But still,
Yeah.
that's
it's
the,
icon-
that's the
that's
story that
iconic,
he's
man.
telling.
Everybody
Oh.
knows.
I'll go ahead and tell you guys this for soundtrack. This movie's going to get a 10
yeah.
from me because I don't care where you're at. You can hear any note of any of these Friday the 13th movies, and I'll instantly can tell you that's a Friday the 13th movie. And I don't care if I'm like somewhere and it's playing in the background, I'll be like, what? Because
That's
I can
right.
pick it out of anywhere. But I tell you what, let's do this, guys. Let's talk about death scenes right now. Daniel,
Okay.
what was your favorite death scene in this movie? Because I think that's one of the strong points of this movie was Tom Savini.
That's
his
right.
special effects.
Tom Savini and
in
his
this
special
movie.
effects. There are 3 iconic Tom Savini special effects that he uses to kill these kids with, and I always really thought that the Kevin Bacon death scene was probably the coolest, with the spear coming up through the throat. That actually happens again in a sequel of Friday the 13th. Somebody else gets a spear through the throat too. But
I know that there's a similar one in part 3
I always thought that
when the chick's on the hammock and the knife comes
I
up.
always thought that was cool, but now
But you have to admit this: an arrow with a broadhead on it, that's especially brutal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
most definitely my favorite's going to go to the Kevin Bacon kill, but I'm going to go ahead and give props to Annie's death when she gets the knife cut across the throat opens up, the blood starts squirting out. All of that, every bit of it was done manually. He had a hand pump, and just as soon as they did that, he started pumping with his hand, squeezing. That's what caused the blood to come out. And he said that during the Kevin Bacon death scene, he said that there was already so much pressure that was built up in there that whenever the spear first comes through and he started to pump with all the extra pressure, that's what caused it to really squirt, and they ended up keeping it. So that was really
That's awesome.
a blooper, basically, but they ended up keeping it in the film because it looked so cool.
Sweet, I didn't know that. You can tell it shoots up on his nose there, and that makes
Yeah.
sense.
It's gruesome.
So Corky, what's
It's
yours?
gruesome, yeah.
What's yours?
Cool.
Yeah, I think.
Who, me or
you
Kate?
go ahead first, Corky, I guess. Because
Hey, my favorite one is
Cade, he's seen this for the first time, right? So he's, he's
yes.
going to be the
Yes,
one
sir.
that we're going to go to and be like, okay, now we want to hear, first time viewing. But Corky, go ahead. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, my favorite kill scene of the whole movie has got to be the Kevin Bacon scene. He's laying there on the bed, chilling, smoking some of that devil's lettuce,
It's because it's cold in here.
Like
I
It's
was-
cold in
like
here, so
I
I got
was-
to put my tank top on.
Yeah.
So I thought that was
Yeah.
funny too.
But like, so there's a lot of things about that scene But an arrow with a broadhead on it through the neck from below is just awesome and brutal. But what I think is funny about this scene though is I try to imagine how did Miss Voorhees know he was going to come in there and lay down? Was she just hiding
Like
under
the
that bed
whole
all
time?
day?
Yeah, exactly.
She
What
said
was she doing
there
the
for
whole
the whole
time?
act.
Yeah,
Like Kevin Bacon and his girlfriend,
Yeah.
they get in
'Cause-
there and they do what they did, and she's under the bed the whole time.
yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, dude, that's one thing that people have said about, Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees. These guys can just pop up in the most opportune moments. Like, can they freaking teleport? So I was sitting there like, what? How did he get there? And how long has he been waiting there for them to just show up and come in here and do it? Like,
Oh,
he's like,
yeah.
okay, they're going in there. They're going in there right now. I better hop into that
to
bed.
start that scene off, though, before Kevin Bacon and his woman even show up, but yeah,
The other guy dies.
Ned is walking around, and Ned sees Mrs. Voorhees actually go into that cabin, and so he's sitting there and he thinks, well, okay,
Yep.
there's nobody else supposed to be here. I better go check this out. And he goes up there, and he actually is killed off screen. You actually don't see him get killed. He's dead by the time Kevin Bacon and his woman show up. And so basically this is how blind Kevin Bacon and his girl was. Okay, they walk up in this cabin, and they're going to take the bottom bunk of this bed, right? All right. So in the top bunk at eye level, you've got a dead body. You've got their dead friend staring at them. They miss him.
Yeah. How
They
did you
miss
not see
him,
the dead
right?
body?
I don't know. Was he
No.
covered up?
He was
Blanket
just
or
laying
anything?
there.
You kinda
He was
see
just
him-
laying
his-
there.
his dead, but
So they go in. They've got
yeah,
dead
I have
Ned
no idea.
laying there eye level. So they go bottom bunk. They do their thing with a live person under them, and never know that
And
there's
a
a
dead
person
person?
above them. There's a live
Yeah.
person below
Above
them, and
them,
they
and
never
a,
know. They're just like, yeah, we're gonna do what we're gonna do.
She has been breathing hard down there too, man. Like there ain't no way that older lady wasn't sitting there needing an auction machine. I mean, what the heck, dude?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
that's definitely my favorite kill scene. But I've always got cracked up every time I think about her hiding under that bed, man. I
Well,
just get
Cade-
cracked about it. But Cade, you watched this movie for the first time.
Yeah.
What's your favorite death scene, bud?
Yeah, so I want to go with one that I thought was kind of the most brutal looking one, which is actually Kevin Bacon's love
Yeah, I
interest.
can't remember.
I can't remember her name, but she goes to the bathroom. She goes to the bathroom, and I guess after Pamela, murders Kevin Bacon there in the most, which I do love that death scene. I was gonna actually mention that scene is freaking sick, but she actually kills this girl. And it's a real creepy scene because she thinks like something's like in back behind the curtains. She doesn't know. And she goes back there and she ends up getting like the camera like she's like has like a crazy like gasp looking face, and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
there's an axe in her
Oh, yeah.
face. Right?
Oh yeah.
So I was like, yeah, and so you see like the axe in her face, and it looks super real, of course. And you see the blood going everywhere, and I was like, dang, man, this is so sick for, and I think Daniel and I were talking at work about this, and he talked about how the first Halloween movie really didn't go into the gore or, a lot of blood in terms of that side of things for what it did. And this movie, trying to build off that, showed that side. And so I thought it was honestly really, really cool. It was definitely like really gruesome, but I was like, dang,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you can tell they put a lot of work into that.
Yeah, that was super cool. Tom
Absolutely.
Savini is the best, man. If I wanted to die
Yeah.
on camera, I would call up Tom Savini. That's right.
I
I'm
want
calling
Tom
up Tom Savini, and I'm going, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing this afternoon?"
Did he do all
No,
the films
no,
after
he
this,
only-
or was
he-
only
I
involved.
don't think he done
I
them all, but he
think-
done most. The first
I think that he
few, I
did.
know.
Maybe one or two others. I'm not real sure about that, but he worked on some other ones.
I know he done part 3. I can't. I can't vouch for the rest of them. Yeah.
Gotcha.
All right. So speaking of death scenes, we're starting to do this thing called Guess the Death Scene, where I play a clip of a death scene and you guys try to guess what it is. So now I'm going to play this death scene, and you guys try to guess what scene I'm playing. All right, what do you think it was?
Go ahead, Kate. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. I think that it was Steve's death scene.
No.
That is wrong. That is wrong.
No.
Ah, crap, man.
Yeah, I've got
an answer.
I think that death scene
Go for it.
is from part 4 when dude gets killed in the shower.
Oh, that is wrong too. No winners tonight. Yeah. Oh, I thought Daniel had it, but no, that death scene was actually Kevin Bacon's death scene with the arrow coming through his neck.
Well,
I don't remember the music.
Yeah, that was it. That was it. So
when Steve
stumped you guys
Steve
this
dies,
time.
I know. I could have swore it was Steve because when he dies, it's a really like the soundtrack picks up like out of nowhere because he's just walking and then he gets stabbed.
man, I
and you're
thought
like,
I thought that you were
Well,
I
like
thought
quick
that you
thing.
were messing with us tonight. I thought that you were throwing us a curveball and
Well, see, I even said, here's what I told myself. I said, self, let's give them an easy one from the actual movie we're doing this time, right? So
I was too busy thinking about like the lady under the bed and the dead person above him, I
Man.
guess. I don't know.
yeah, well,
I don't know. I didn't remember that.
so points go to me this week, guys.
all right.
Points go to me. All right, now let's talk about the ending of this film. So we go through, everybody gets killed. We don't know who the killer is. This was kind of your first whodunit movie. You know what I'm saying? And it was actually shot through. You never see the killer through this movie. That was another different thing. Because, with Halloween, you get glimpses of Michael Myers. With Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you get glimpses of Leatherface. This movie, they done it a little different. You always see through the eyes of the killer or something like that.
The
And that
feet.
was a little different.
You see the feet a lot.
So, yeah. They done a lot of stuff trying to throw you off. So it's kind of one of the first whodunit movies out there. So, what do you guys think about the ending, Cage? You watched it for the first time last night, and you said you didn't know until you seen it last night that it was Pamela Voorhees, not Jason, that was doing the killing. So tell me what you thought when you seen that.
Well, it answered a lot of questions that I had in the movie because, like I mentioned earlier, when Annie died and that girl just gets in the Jeep and is acting normal, I was like, okay, I know Jason's not the most normal-looking person. If this is Jason, obviously,
Jason's driving a 5-speed Jeep,
Yeah, I was like, how is she not like tripping balls right now, like and just freaking out? But it made a lot of sense.
That is funny. You could be like getting in a Jeep and some dude with a potato sack.
Well,
over his
he
head
ain't even got the potato sack at that point.
Yeah,
that's what I was saying. Yeah, he's like a freaking deformed, like little.
He's got
the
this
hills
head.
have eyes. Is driving this
head
Jeep.
that's about
Goonies.
3 sizes too big, and he's bald headed.
It's literally the
small.
Goonies monster.
And people just getting in Jeeps with him. Oh, hey,
Sloth.
so
I
it-
always get him and
Yeah.
Chunk mixed up.
It answered a lot of questions I had, and that whole sequence where it's her, because obviously some of our other counselors die. There's a few more cool death scenes, especially the one with the, I guess you call him like the kind guy, the handy guy who actually gets pinned to the door. Also, I mean, you got to admit, okay, this lady, she ain't messing around. She was able to lift this guy up and pin him to that door.
Yeah, that's another thing that never made sense. Yeah.
She's got some crazy strength, and you see a couple of things happen here. Like obviously she's not right in the head. She's a little crazy. And I don't know if this has any connection at all, but she was obviously driving that Jeep at the beginning of the movie.
Right.
Well, you see Steve whenever he leaves or when he's on his way back, he's driving that same Jeep.
I think it's a different color.
No, he
I
had
think
his
it's a
own
different
Jeep.
color.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's one of the
Okay,
things they done to try to throw you off, to try to make you think Steve was the
Yes.
killer. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. But yeah, she's super menacing in that final act where she's obviously chasing down Alice, and she's pretty creepy. You know, she's got that really weird smile, and then of course there's these random instances where she starts saying, you know, "Mommy, kill her." You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of implying that she's either a whack job or there's some kind of demonic spirit thing going on here where she's either possessed by the spirit of Jason. As veterans of the franchise, I don't know if that's the case, and maybe that'll be answered later on. I know
is
that
never-
he is eventually the main killer.
Well,
She is
in the
never
next
actually
couple
possessed
sequels,
by
but-
Jason. However, in part 9, there is some possession that takes place.
Part 9.
Well, let me tell
Wow.
you a kind of a theory behind this. Again, not canon, but I do a lot of reading on groups, Friday the 13th groups and stuff like that, because that's just the life I live. But
Yeah, I love it. Let's hear
so
it.
in part 2, Jason, you know, he's probably 19 or 20 years old, and he actually, you know, spoiler alert, but he goes to Alice's house and kills her in her kitchen. So we know this took place probably a year after part 1. So theoretically, Jason is 18 or 19 at this point. And the theory is that maybe Jason never died, and how Pamela was able to lift people up and pin them to walls and stuff like that was maybe Jason was helping her the whole time. Now,
That would be crazy.
that's just something I've seen people talk about. I don't know that I agree with it, but you know Jason's out there somewhere. Unless the other theory is when Pamela dies and gets her head cut off, somehow that resurrects him. But if he gets resurrected, then what they do, just grow for 15 years, you know, because when he drowned it, he was
Yeah,
what,
something
12,
like that.
something like that.
Yeah, he was a child.
So,
he was a child, yeah.
The whole resurrecting him thing doesn't make sense because, again, he'd still be a 12-year-old kid. So, you know, we've got to think that this whole time Jason is alive, and don't know if he was helping his mom out or something, but that's
Well,
one of the theories
if
that's
this
out
took
there.
place, if
What do
this
you
took
guys
place
think?
in 1980, the ages ain't right. If this took place in 1980 and
I've heard
Jason
that, yeah.
died in the 50s, he's going to be in his 40s.
Yeah.
He's going to
Didn't
be in
even
his
think about
40s
that.
right there. And back
Right.
then in 1980, it looked like Pamela Voorhees was in her 40s. So, I mean, I don't know how that
So, yeah,
works out, you know.
There's some continuity issues.
Well,
I'd read that online.
here's what
There
I'm
was
gonna
some
chalk
issues
that
with
up
ages
to.
there.
We made part 1, did not realize it would be so successful. Now we've got to come up with a sequel, and we got to
Yeah.
figure some way to do that. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I never thought about that, Daniel. The timelines don't add up because Jason should have been middle-aged.
But
that
now,
was going
I
on.
was
she
I was
did
gonna
have
ask y'all that.
some superhuman strength. Cause go back to the Kevin Bacon kill, right? So she's under the bed. That means that there ain't but 6 inches in between the floor and the bed here, and she's gonna take a spear with no leverage whatsoever, and she's gonna poke the spear through a mattress and through the back of Kevin Bacon's neck with
Yeah,
no
that's what I
leverage
was gonna say.
whatsoever. So she's going to be strong as crap, you know.
So
People
I'm just
break that
laughing.
freaking kill scene down and just roast it, man. Like, how did the arrow go through the spinal column and everything with her laying on the ground?
She
You know?
was probably so mad because if like what Daniel's saying, there's like 6 inches of gap there, and she's just sitting there like smushed with her nose flattened, and of course they're doing it on that mattress, so they're just pushing her down to the floor.
And let's take
She's
it
probably
like this.
She's
Arrows
probably
are
like,
like
screw
3
these
and a-
guys.
You know, an arrow's like 3 feet long, probably a little longer. How did she get it turned up to come
Yeah.
up under
She's
his
sitting
neck?
with it just like between her legs or something, just like ready to shove it up. Like
Yeah,
something stupid.
the death
That's
scene is
pretty
awesome,
funny,
but the
actually.
scene
But, I mean-
itself makes no sense. None.
Yeah, when you start
you
looking into the
see-
physics of it, it doesn't really make sense. No.
Well, you see her take some serious blows from our main final girl there towards the end. I mean, she gets hit in the face with like a gun barrel.
Yeah, so that was.
Yeah.
I mean,
I took
she
some
takes
notes,
shots. So I
and
mean,
this ties into what you're talking about, Cade. So, kind of breaking down this thing after she starts chasing Alice here. Alice has some missed opportunities for saving herself. Okay, so
yeah,
first off, Alice and Bill, which was the handy guy that's trying to help everybody. Alice and Bill leaves the axe in Brenda's room when it's raining and they can't find nobody. They go into the room. They find the bloody axe in the bed. No red flags. This is 1980. We don't, red flags don't exist.
Yeah,
we just found a bloody
It's
axe
normal.
in our friend's room, and the only thing that we say is, "What is going on?" That's it.
He must have went
So
hunting.
that's missed opportunity, right? So then after she actually gets attacked by Mrs. Voorhees, she hits Mrs. Voorhees over the back with a fireplace poker, knocks Pamela Voorhees down, and then throws the fire poker down beside her and runs away. There, let's leave the
Yeah.
second weapon that's been afforded to us. Okay. Then she goes
the
to,
tropes,
I'm
man.
guessing, what is the shooting range, because she's got all them guns that are on the wall, and yet she doesn't find any ammo. And so Pamela Voorhees breaks into the gun shed with her, chases her around. She takes the gun, hits Pamela again, knocks her unconscious, supposedly, throws the gun down. Let's not, continue to look for bullets and load this thing and blow the woman's head off. Let's not do that. Let's just throw the gun down and run away. So that's what she did there. And then when she makes it back to the main cabin, where the fireplace poker is, she hides in the food pantry, which is where Crazy Ralph was hiding. And,
yeah, let's say he popped out earlier.
Pamela chases her up in there. Pamela breaks in the door, Shining style, unlocks the door, opens it, and then Alice bangs her over the head with a frying pan and leaves the frying pan. So every single time that Alice finds something to hit this woman with, she immediately drops it and runs away.
Yeah, that bothered the crap out of me too.
You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of trading a Desert Eagle in for a rocket launcher or something like that.
Oh yeah,
Brent's
not here to defend himself, but you should have done that, Brent. Shame on you,
son.
Okay. All right. Before we rate this, guys, we got to do trivia.
All right.
Daniel, let's do
I've
trivia.
got some trivia questions tonight. So I've got
Trivia
6 of
time.
them, and like normal, they range kind of from, some easy ones to some hard ones. So we're going to go ahead and get into this. Question number 1.
Let's do it.
Who was the main draw when this movie was made? What actor was at the time was kind of the A-list actor, aside from Pamela Voorhees, because she was an A-list actor back then. Not counting her. Who was the main draw? Go ahead.
Corky. I'm going to say Kevin Bacon,
You are
but I'm
wrong,
probably
sir.
wrong.
Cade, are you going to hazard a guess?
I don't even. Okay. I'm not gonna look at anything. I'm just gonna think about the cast. Okay. I mean, was the main
5,
draw for this?
4.
Okay.
Steve was not the main draw.
Steve.
No, he was not. No.
His mustache.
The answer to this
Who
question
was it then?
was the guy
Tom
that played
Savini.
Bill. The guy that played Bill, his name is Harry Crosby. Harry Crosby.
Really?
Harry Crosby's
Okay.
dad is a famous singer named Bing Crosby. So Bing Crosby's
Oh,
son
really?
was in this
Okay.
movie, and at the time, he was considered the biggest name. All right, so no points.
right.
No
Wow.
points. Question number two. Question number
All
two.
right.
Think about the entire movie. Okay? We're just thinking about this movie. Who was the third person killed in this movie? Cade, go.
Cade.
Ugh.
4, 3,
Okay, the third person killed in this movie.
2.
It was the goofy guy walking into the cabin by himself.
You are wrong,
and he gets
sir.
killed off screen. Crap.
I'm gonna say Kevin Bacon.
You are also wrong, sir. You got it.
Man,
You
who
got
was it? His girlfriend?
Wait, what would have been? Was it?
It was
Annie
Annie.
then?
It was
because
Annie.
technically 2 people
You
died.
got to think about.
Really?
You got to count the 2 deaths in
Yeah.
the prologue.
Dang it!
Oh man, that's what
I
got me.
even thought about it, but then I was
Yeah.
like, I didn't think that. I didn't consider it too.
That was a
Oh,
good
yeah.
question. That was a good one because I
That
didn't
was-
consider
And I
the
figured that you
1958
guys
counselors.
I figured that you guys would think that Annie was the first one.
Oh,
Okay,
All right, so
okay.
we on number 3 here. What year
Yep.
did the water go bad when they tried to reopen the camp? Go ahead, Cade.
Cade.
You are wrong, sir.
1963.
You are even
1968.
further from being wrong, sir.
Dios
Oh.
razón.
Is it 62?
It was 62.
Is it 62?
The
Dang
truck
it, man!
driver
I was about to say
I
that.
thought they said that
The
happened
truck
10 years
driver
later.
was telling Annie about the fire that happened 10 years later or something. And he was also talking about the water going bad in 62.
Oh man.
Dang it,
Oh,
man!
yeah.
I was so
Oh, yeah.
close, dude.
So-
I had a quarter of a point.
We're at
Tenth-
question number
tenth of a
4. Okay. And we've already talked about this one. So you guys better get ready with the buzzers. Okay. What year did
All right.
Jason drown? Go, Cade.
Cade.
You are correct.
1957.
1957. The opening
I
scene.
knew that one. He just
the
got it
opening
out
scene
before
takes
me.
place in 1958, and later on in the movie, Pamela Voorhees tells Alice that the previous year is when her son Jason drowned. So that's 1957. Now we're gonna get to another kind of hard one. Okay, so you gotta. How close did you
God.
pay attention? And we've talked about this scene probably 5 or 6 times already. Okay, so what cemetery did the truck driver drop Annie off in front of?
See, I read that because I figured you would ask that, and I have forgot
Wait,
it.
the name?
Yes.
Yep.
The name?
Yes.
Oh, I'll go ahead and tell you right now. I don't have a.
I swear,
clue.
I was sitting on the couch and I read that and I was like, yeah, that's one of them things he'll ask. And I
That's some-
should have written it down.
That is so true, man. I should have thought about that when I was watching it. I was like, this would be
All
something
right.
Daniel
Well,
would
so
do.
there's
What
admit
is it?
defeat here. So it is the Moravian Cemetery in
I knew it
in
started with an M.
Hope, New Jersey.
I didn't have it.
In Hope, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I was about to say I knew
All right.
where they were at.
You know what, Daniel? I got a cool trivia
Okay.
question for when we're done. We'll see how much you paid
Okay.
attention to this
All right.
movie.
Yeah,
You're
get
gonna
him,
some
Corey.
payback. Okay. All right. So I got one more trivia
Yeah.
question. This should be easy if you were paying attention. Okay. What month was Friday the 13th on in the movie?
June.
Corky is correct. Corky is
Yes.
correct. So you're actually
We're tied.
tie knot, and golly bum if I don't have okay, here's an impromptu question.
All right.
Okay, for the tiebreaker. Okay, should be easy. Okay, name one other movie that Kevin Bacon starred in after this. Corky, go. Tremors is right. Okay, I said that I'd accept anything.
I was gonna say. I was thinking of
And
every
it
Kevin
flooded
Bacon
your-
movie I
flooded
could.
your
in
mind.
head.
All right.
Just, I'm like, yeah, it flooded my mind. I was like, I know he
Footloose, yeah.
dances.
All right.
Yeah.
Ultimate
Ultimate
bonus
bonus.
question for either one of you
All right,
guys that think you
let's
can get
go.
it.
All
In
right.
the movie, Annie's walking down the street in the town before she goes into the diner.
Yep.
Right? She walks past a phone booth. What
Daniel.
color is that phone booth?
Okay.
Red.
Go. Cade.
It's red.
Blue.
Daniel got it right.
Because that
Dang
was,
it, Daniel.
Yeah.
I should have looked. I should looked at my shirt.
That was going to be one of them.
Now, you know what's fun? Did you see that phone booth she walked by? Now, this is 1980, and that sucker was like a retro
It was,
egg-looking
man.
phone
It
booth,
was-
man, from
it was
something out of the
weird
future.
looking. It was weird looking.
I'll have to go.
Do
I
you-
didn't
do you
pay
know
any
what-
attention to that. I should have.
Well, see, that's what I was doing, was trying to pick out off-the-wall crap like that, and then he gets me with the cemetery name, you know.
What color was
Green.
Kevin Bacon's swim trunks?
Green with yellow
Yellow.
stripe. Oh, wait. No.
Green.
You're right, Corky. They were yellow.
Uh,
No,
It was
no, they
blue,
were
right?
yellow. I'm pretty sure they're yellow.
Or were they yellow? Hold on, I'm gonna have to look
Kevin
up Kevin
Bacon
Bacon in his
Speedo
Speedo
pics.
here.
I'm
pull,
not
pull it
Googling
up.
it.
Pull it up.
Kevin Bacon
I'm not
Speedo,
Googling it, but
Friday
you
the
go ahead.
13th. Let's see.
Blue
It was
and
blue and
really?
yellow.
Oh, man.
Blue and yellow.
I knew it. And you said green, and blue and yellow make
I'm-
green.
Dude, they just
They
straight
do.
up show
yeah.
his junk.
He's just showing everything.
What the heck, dude?
He's showing
They didn't
everything
even
he's
try to
got.
hide it.
Yeah, and you're
I-
looking at it
I
right
got
now,
you,
bro.
I got
That's
you,
what's
I
insane.
got you
It's
another,
gone.
I got you another
It's gone.
bonus question right here. Okay.
All right.
Tell me what the only real casualty was in the movie. There was a real casualty. Tell me what it was.
Corky.
Cade.
Corky,
Dang it!
come
I
in.
know it too. I know
Oh, I'm
it,
probably
man.
don't. I'm
Corky,
probably not
come
going to
in
get
first.
this right, but they
That
killed a
is
snake for real. in
Yes, they did kill the snake.
it. Yes.
Wait.
Well-
Wait.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
there's another.
All right.
All right. What you got?
Okay, so the police officer that picks up Steve drops him off because there's been some kind of accident, right? And they talk about somebody
yeah,
died.
but that's an
I don't know.
that's just a death in the
It-
movie. I mean an actual casualty, a real death. The snake died.
the snake
The
scene
snake
in the
was
movie
killed.
that they
really
really killed
sorry.
that snake. That was a real live
Yeah,
snake.
that-
I
they
thought
killed.
I thought you were just meaning like somebody that died out.
Like
out,
PETA would be
other
all over
means,
them or
okay.
something. But whoever that is,
Yeah, that scene would
there's
not
no
happen
way
these
that
days. Yeah.
that scene would
Oh,
fly
screw the
today.
snakes. You can kill as many as you want in the movie. It's okay with me. Get it
Yeah.
done.
Let's see.
Yeah.
So I took some notes and we went over, Bing Crosby's son. The deputy, we didn't talk about this, but the deputy that was on the bike that came to warn them about Crazy Ralph, that dude didn't know how to ride a motorcycle. Well,
Did you
yeah,
see him almost wreck? I started
but
laughing.
he said in
I
the
started
interview, I watched the
laughing, yeah.
interview with him, and he said that he had never been on a motorcycle before.
Did you see me back? Well, he was heading off the road as he was leaving. I was cracking up. I'm like,
See,
this
I'm
dude
going to have
was
to
so
go back and
very-
look at that one.
So
I
they
didn't know that.
also
really
talk
wobbly.
about not having any power out there. They have to use a generator for their power. But there's a scene where Kevin Bacon and his woman are staring out across the lake, and that's when the thunder comes, and he goes, there's a storm coming that's going to tear down the
Yeah.
valley like a mother or something. Well, you can actually see a big power line running across the lake in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. They
That's
really
funny.
killed the snake.
That's great.
Kevin Bacon says it's cold in here and puts on a tank top. Tom Savini did the special effects.
That's what I would do.
While Pamela Voorhees
So
is
okay,
hiding
in
under
this
the
one
bed.
too, and it's
She's
something
getting
to think
scorched.
about. Okay, but in these movies, there's specific rules for the final girl, right? So the final girl is usually the one that's not promiscuous. She's usually the one that is, just doing the right thing morally. Okay. Well, in this one,
Right.
if you'll remember, whenever they're playing Strip Monopoly, Alice is actually smoking weed with everybody, which is a no-no
Yep.
for the final girl rules.
Yep.
So they broke the rules
And
there
drinking.
with the final girl. I thought that was pretty cool. Just a couple other tidbits that I had. The dog in town lives. Sandy, the waitress, where Steve Christie was at the diner with, Sandy lives. The police biker and the deputy, and his name was Deputy Tierney. Both of those guys live. And in this one, Crazy Ralph lives, and Crazy Ralph was actually at the camp with no real means of transportation. He was actually on a bicycle, so that dude could have been knocked off really easy, and he lived.
Dude rode that
Yeah,
bike for
he did.
20 miles.
Just one other tidbit is Bill, Ned, and Brenda, which make up half of the cast. All three of those people were killed off screen. Didn't see their deaths.
Yep.
Let's see. That's pretty much it. I broke down the kills. If you want to hear them, basically,
Yeah, go ahead if you want. If you want to tell us
basically,
about it, go ahead.
Jason drowned in 1957. He would technically be the first death, but it's not the first kill. Then you got the boy counselor was killed first in 1958. Then the girl counselor was killed second in 1958. Then they killed the snake, but that's not a character. That's an actual death.
R.I.P. the snake, baby.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
And
Poor
then
snake.
Ned got killed first. Kevin Bacon was killed second. Marcy was killed third. Brenda was killed fourth. Mr. Christie was fifth. Ned actually made it longer in the movie than what Mr. Christie did. And then Mrs. Voorhees was killed in the finale. And then in the opening credits of part 2, Alice is killed.
Cool.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you guys about that last scene because you see Alice, she's traumatized. Well, first of all, she's in the boat, right? She puts herself in the boat after she kills Pamela Voorhees and just floats away. She's like, I might as well just ride down the lake here. Better than just walking 10 miles and then there's
Right.
a location where there might be some people to help her. But you actually, it kind of cuts to like a nice scene where the music's kind of uplifting.
Uh-huh.
You're like, oh, she's made it out. And then obviously you see a Jason Voorhees jump out of the water. And, it cuts to her in the hospital and they're giving her medication and she's telling them like, hey, Jason's there. That means he's still alive, something like that. So, I think this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I mean, he had to have been there in some capacity. And then I guess my next question is, do you guys know if they intended on this to become a mega franchise where they do end up having, a Michael Myers type character in Jason? Because, you don't see him and it's, you only see him in this little weird way, in like a dreamlike way. So, I mean, what was going on?
Well,
there?
this movie was made not with the intention of it becoming a franchise. They specifically made Friday the 13th Part 1 because of the success of Halloween in 1978. They basically ripped off Halloween, and they said, this
They openly
this
admitted
movie
it.
was just supposed to be a rip off of Halloween. at the time, remember this is 1980, so at the time, Halloween 2 hadn't been made yet. Halloween 2 didn't come out until 81, so Halloween wasn't even a franchise yet. But with the success of both Halloween and Friday the 13th, more sequels ended up being made, and it just so happened that Halloween's sequel, which came out in 81, made a little more sense than what Friday the 13th Part 2 did. But they didn't care because these movies were making money. They were putting butts in the seats. And I've said this, for years, none of these movies are supposed to be Oscar-winning movies. They're supposed to be
dumb
good
action.
popcorn movies. You just pop one in, or you go to the drive-in with your girlfriend, or you go to the movie theater with your girlfriend. And this is a movie that, your girlfriend snuggles up next to you and you eat popcorn and you just have a good time. That's what these movies are supposed to be. So there wasn't a whole lot of thought, especially, when they made the first ones. There wasn't a whole lot of forethought with, these movies are going to continue on for decades. Nobody was thinking about that. So I don't know if that exactly answered your question, Cade, but
Yeah, I think so. I think so because it was just so strange, having that. I guess they wanted it as just like a shocking thing, but the fact that she was so sure that Jason was there, like how did she know? How did she know that Jason was still alive at Camp Lake? Because she has no.
That scene, you're talking about the canoe scene at the end?
Well, yeah, that, and then she's in the hospital claiming that Jason's still there. Is it because of her dream?
I think that had to be a dream because the directors openly said they put that scene in at the end just as a jump scare,
And it was...
Okay.
But if you think about the movie...
It was supposed to kind of be like Carrie, too. If you've seen Carrie come out in 1976... And at the end of Carrie, there was a similar sequence to where everything was going right for, 30 seconds. And it started to put the audience at ease. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, there was a jump scare right at the end of the movie. And a hand come up out of the grave. Yeah. And that was a jump scare back then. So they said that they were trying to do something similar to that.
Yeah, which is probably why a lot of the timelines don't add up, like we talked about in Part 2 with the ages of Jason and stuff like that, because they probably, when you make a new movie especially, you never know it's going to become this huge iconic movie, They were just trying to make some money, and you can tell by the movie we done a couple weeks ago, Howling Part 2 in the 80s, it was just like pump one out,
This was a big upgrade.
And sometimes they struck
that movie.
Yeah, sometimes they struck fire, and sometimes they, didn't. So, I think the first one done good, and they were probably like, "Bro, we got to get back in the writing room and get another one out." And so, but sometimes it works, and you end up with Jason Voorhees. I've always said Jason Voorhees is kind of like Michael Myers. Well, really like Michael Myers. People go to the movies to see Jason. People go to the movies to see Michael. They don't really care about the movie. They just want to see more scenes involving your favorite horror
and you want to see
icons.
him killing people.
And that's what Jason.
You want to see him killing
become.
People. Yeah, and I'll tell you one other little tidbit since we were talking about that last scene in the hospital. You've got Alice laying in the bed, and then you've got the doctor off on her left, and you've got a nurse that's giving her a shot in the hip. Alice rolls over, nurse gives her the shot, and the sheriff is in there, or the deputy, whoever he was, and he kind of looks away, But whenever they pan back over and they show all of them in the same shot, the nurse says something to the doctor, but she looks at the camera. She breaks the fourth wall, and it's involuntary. It wasn't supposed to happen. So she gives her line, but then she looks at the camera, and I mean, that's why I'm not an actor. because I couldn't do it. I couldn't do a scene and not
Right.
look
Yeah.
at the camera. You know, so I mean, I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah,
They
that's
probably
pretty
couldn't
cool.
afford to reshoot that.
Yeah,
Honestly.
yeah,
They
I mean,
probably
it
just said,
was-
"Oh, screw it."
Yeah, probably not. They done gave Tom
That's
Savini
right.
all their money by that time.
Well, that's honestly really crazy how the franchise, and I can't wait to see the next movie because I know that.
Have you
so
never
much
seen part
changes.
2?
No.
Sorry
I've-
for spoiling
I've-
that intro to
Like
it.
I
There.
said, the only movie I have seen, I've seen Jason X. Okay.
Hey,
And
I love Jason X. People hate that movie,
Yeah.
but I love it.
And I do remember the reboot back in what was it, 2010?
2009.
Yeah, I remember that coming out, and then I do remember Freddy versus Jason because I was so into that. Like,
Well, listen, you
crossover.
haven't seen any
No.
of the good ones. These movies don't get written. Now, part 2's good. Don't get
Part
me
2
wrong.
is
Part
very
2's
good.
very good. But 3, 4, and 6 are your main ones. And I
Well,
love
I'm
part 5.
excited
People
about
hate
it.
part 5, but I love part 5. But so, in my opinion, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, in
that's
my-
the franchise
in my
right there.
I'm just
in
ready
my
to see some
ranking,
of the lore.
The original Friday the 13th is actually my number 4 movie. It's not even in my top 3.
No, I've probably seen this one less than any
Don't
of
get me
them.
wrong. I straight up love the original. I love it. But in my opinion, part 3 is my favorite. It used to, for years and years and years, it was part
Oh, yeah,
4
yeah.
for me. But part 3 has recently in the past couple of years become my favorite Friday the 13th movie. I love part 3. I love part 4. I love part 2. I love part 6. With as crazy as what part 6 is, that's part 6 is when it.
Oh,
Part
6 is my
when
favorite.
it really starts to make fun of itself because that's when you really start getting some.
Part 6 is where
Yeah,
you get
you-
zombie
you-
Jason. That's where
Really,
zombie
you really
Jason
start
is
getting
first
into some
introduced.
comedy with part 6, and they start name dropping. They'll start name dropping stuff from Halloween. There's a guy in there that they call Carpenter, which is John Carpenter that directed Halloween. They name drop Carpenter. They do some more name dropping in that movie, but they really start making fun of themselves in part 6. But it's a great movie. It's great.
Chad is. I
Hey,
can't wait till we do part 6.
Oh, yeah.
Little side note. You know how we talked about the infamous,
Yeah.
Right.
Well, on the back of the 4K Blu-ray copy I got of this movie, it actually has it lined out in like special art, like lettering. It says it has the key ma.
Really?
It actually has it. Yeah, so I mean that's legit. Like what is supposed to be said with that. So Daniel,
Yeah,
you were right.
yeah, there's no doubt about it. That's what it is. I just don't agree with it.
It
It
doesn't
doesn't
sound,
sound like it. It really doesn't. 'Cause
No.
My whole life I've
But
always thought it was.
you gotta really start listening
has
for
the
it in
CH
about
sound,
part
but-
3. Part 3, part 4, really start listening for it.
Okay.
I can tell a little bit in a few of them, but if I'm not paying attention, I can't tell. I've got to really be listening for it and paying attention.
Yeah.
Well. Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and rank this bad boy. Cade, since Brent's not here today, can you tell us how we're going to rank this movie?
Yes, so we use a scale of 1 to 10 for our rankings. That's just the basis for all the categories we got here. And essentially, we rate this movie on a few things. First of all, we do cultural significance. You know, how has this movie, impacted other films or pop culture just in general? Then we go a little bit more specific with these rankings. We go into special effects. We go into the soundtrack or the music. We go into symbolism, kind of into the hidden meanings behind some of the movies we watch, and then overall enjoyment. Of course, some movies, like last week we watched The Howling. All of us probably didn't rank it very high everywhere else, but I think for enjoyment, we gave this one a pretty good score. So that kind of
Yeah, we did.
how the overall enjoyment works. So that's kind of how we rate these bad boys.
All right.
All right, well, Daniel, since Cade done the introduction there, kick it off for us. Rate this baby.
Alrighty, so each week we're rating these movies, and here are my rankings for Friday the 13th. For cultural significance, getting into this is very important for this movie. Or should I say, this movie is very important for this category because Friday the 13th is so groundbreaking for what came after Friday the 13th. It really started to set the standard. So let me get this straight. I want to, I don't want my Halloween fans to start bashing me over the head. Halloween 1978 started the whole slasher thing off. Now, I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It come out in 74. Even before that, you had Psycho that come out in 1969, I believe. And you could technically make a statement saying that those were slashers as well. But the slasher genre really didn't take off until Halloween came out in 78. And in 1980, Friday the 13th added an element to the slasher genre, which is a gore fest. So you would not have all of the other B movies that came out with all of these other spectacular kills and all of this blood. You've got Sleepaway Camp, and you've got, all of the sequels to Friday the 13th, and you've got all of these gore fests, Hellraiser. Okay. Everything's a gore fest. Tons of blood. Would not happen if Friday the 13th hadn't have been made. So cultural significance, for me, is right under Halloween. And if Halloween is a 10, then cultural significance for me for this movie is a 9. And you've got the music, the soundtrack, the Kid Ma Ma Ma. Harry Manfredini did this soundtrack. It's the best soundtrack. Next to the Halloween theme itself, is the most recognizable soundtrack. So, the music in this, soundtrack in this is going to be a solid 9. Then we go into the special effects. We've talked a little bit about that. Tom Savini is a master special effects, and I am huge into practical effects. I like CGI just like anybody else likes CGI, but when I am watching my old school 1980s slasher films, that's when I really want to see my practical effects, and you're not going to get anything better than Tom Savini. So I'll go ahead and give this. I will go ahead and give this special effects a 9. Then we go into symbolism. Symbolism is a more in-depth kind of category for me, the way that I'm looking at it. There's not a whole lot of symbolism that's in this movie. You can say, yeah, there's some foreshadowing, there's some red flags that should have been raised and everything, but all in all, it's not really there. So that's going to be my lowest ranking at a 2. And then my overall enjoyment for this movie, 100% without a doubt, is a 10. This movie is just awesome. So after you total all that up, I get a 7.8, which equals an 8.
Awesome.
8 for overall.
Yeah, that's a pretty good score. Cade, what about you, buddy?
Yes, sir. I'll go ahead and dive into it. So, kind of like what we talked about earlier, this was my very first time watching this movie, which is probably what we're going to be experiencing a lot going through some of these older films that I just didn't get to watch as a kid. So, with cultural significance, I feel like even myself never watched this movie, but can tell you immediately, what this movie, entails, who Jason is. And so this movie obviously has stood the test of time. I'm going to give it a 10 for cultural significance. Moving on from there, looking at some of the special effects here, we've talked about it in the movie. The kills, they're awesome. I specifically highlighted one in particular where an axe gets, shoved in this woman's head, and The blood looks super real. It doesn't look super corny or cheesy. And these guys didn't have a super crazy budget with this, and they were able to capture and make something that looks super sick. So I'm gonna give it a 9 for special effects. Moving on from there to the music, I'm actually gonna give this a pretty high score as well, because obviously the theme with Jason that we've talked about is super iconic. Everybody knows it. I'm sure even kids that have never seen or heard of the franchise would probably be like, oh yeah, I think that's Jason. They would understand it. So, and obviously there's instances in the movie where the soundtrack kind of aided in the horror aspect. Specifically when Steve died, I remember whenever he died and that soundtrack picked up, I was super freaked out. And so I'll actually give that a 9. And in terms of symbolism, there wasn't much in this movie in terms of symbolism, in terms of like little hidden messages. So I'll just give this an average score for a 5 here. I mean, the ending was kind of cool though, the twist. I don't know if you consider that anything symbolism. The fact that it wasn't Jason the whole time and they kind of twisted that was pretty sick. So I'll give that a 5. And overall enjoyment, I'm gonna give this a 9. I love this movie. I can't wait to see what's in the future for this franchise in terms of all the other sequels. As these guys said, they only get better, so I'm pretty pumped for that. And so I'm going to give that a 9, of course. And that averages to an 8.4 for me, which is an 8 out of 10.
All right, that's 2 8. So now I guess it's up to me since Brent's not here today. Well, I'm going to put it to you like this. This movie gets 10s all the way around for me. So, enjoyment, bar none. I love it. But the one thing you guys are probably thinking, how could he give a 10 to symbolism? Well, let me tell you why. Symbolism in this movie, what this movie, for me personally, symbolizes summertime. When I put these movies on and they go to the summer camps, it's summertime, it's hot, everybody's having fun, they're swimming. This movie symbolizes summertime to me. Like when I watch Halloween, that symbolizes fall to me. So that may be kind of not what you guys were looking for when it comes to symbolism, but I look at it like if I put in a Friday the 13th movie, it makes me think of summertime. That's what it symbolizes to me. So I'm going to give it a 10 for that. Music, 10. Special effects, a 10. Overall enjoyment, 10. I'll go ahead and tell you, all these movies, Friday the 13th movies, will be 10s for me. They're my favorite movies.
Heck yeah.
They're my favorite movies of all time. So they will always, you guys are going to know how I'm going to rank these movies going forward. They'll always be 10s for me. So we got 2 8s and a 10, and I guess that's an
8.
What's it average out to?
That average at an 8.67, which would be a 9.
So we're going to bump it up to
guys.
a 9. So
that's a really high score.
Yeah, well, I probably padded a little bit, but I am biased, so that's just one of those things. But so, what you guys think, man?
I get it. I know where you're coming from. I didn't think about it like that when I was doing my rankings for symbolism. And it really is a summertime movie. It's supposed to be a good popcorn flick. It's supposed to be a movie to where you're gonna, curl up with your girlfriend or curl up with your wife. You're gonna watch this movie. You're just gonna have a good time, man. And then go to the drive-in. It's gonna be hot. It's gonna be, or at least warm. Reminds you of summertime, and that when I'm reminded of summertime, I'm reminded of a lot of nostalgia. I hung out with Corky, and I hung out with a couple other friends, and we rode bicycles all around town, and we lived right beside the park, and we went to the park every day and shot basketball and played baseball, and I've got some really good nostalgic memories from summertime. So kudos to you for thinking about that, Corky. That's a good idea.
That's what it always reminds me of now. If I'm going to watch Halloween Part 1, I want to look at the front door and I want to see leaves blowing down the road. That's just where these movies take me, man. And that's probably why I love them so much, because at any given time, I can put on a Friday the 13th movie or a Halloween movie, and it just takes me to another place, man. And when you get our age, and Cade, you'll see this one day. Sometimes you just need to go to a better place, and that's a lot of what these movies are. They're time machines for us. And that's why I put the symbolism there like that, because they take me to a better place and a better time, even though people are getting murdered on the screen. As weird as that may sound, but it is what it is. That they just put me in a better place, and that's what I love about them.
100%.
So
100%, man.
we definitely recommend Friday the 13th Part 1. From all of us here at Remember That, we appreciate everybody tuning in. Our last episode, surprisingly, I didn't think we would get, a lot of views on it because it was a weird movie. But, man, I guess people liked it, or they liked hearing us talk about it, because I think we all had a good time.
Werewolf nipples.
Yeah, werewolf nipples. So, but, yeah, man, we appreciate everybody, man. Just give us a like and and subscribe to us, man, because we want to grow this little podcast. We have a great time doing it, and we hope you have a great time listening to it, man. So from everybody here, Kay, Daniel, me, and the absent Brent, appreciate you guys listening to us, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
See you. Bye.
See you. Bye.
Remember, we keep it tight, and it's a podcast world. We're ready to ignite. That's the lesson. You got it all. Tune in, turn up, come vibe with us, y'all. So remember.